So with all this issue surrounding Trinidad and Venezuela, I sometimes have to think about CARICOM and where the leaders' loyalty lies. I mean, every time Venezuela name pops up, you have people like Saint Vincent, Prime Minister Gonzalez names propping up, and he's always at the forefront, seemingly defending what's taking place in terms of giving back into Venezuela, saying that Venezuela needs peace, and just like the rest of CARICOM. But this is a very sensitive thread in the regional web, and Gonzalez, of course, has long maintained what people call a curiously tight relationship with Nicolas Maduro of Venezuela. I believe that is far tighter than most CARICOM leaders dare to admit. And on the surface, if you look at it, it's explained away with the unusual diplomatic jargon, people saying regional solidarity, anti imperialist stance, and energy cooperation. But if you dig a little bit deeper, what emerges for me is like a quiet network of influence. There's a loyalty going on, and there's strategic leverage that could destabilize CARICOM from the inside. I mean, CARICOM has now become a routine, a routine ritual. People just have meetings, but let's look at the one of the hidden leverages or the hidden leverage, which is a Petrocarib ghost. That's no longer in play, really. That's a Venezuelan initiative that supplied oil to Caribbean nations on favorable credit terms. So while most countries scaled back dependence after Venezuela's economic collapse, Gonzalez remained loyal. Other Caribbean leaders also remained loyal, but the question is why? Because Petrocarib was never just about oil. What we understand it to be, it was a soft power tool and a way for Maduro's government to buy silence, support, and political insulation on the international stage. And of course, many of the leaders being the most dependable regional voice defending Venezuela at OAS and the UN, or the most dependable voice on that stage was Gonzalez and still remains Gonzalez. But there's a lot of questions that you have to ask yourself. The loyalty that's going on here, is it free? Is it bought through financial favors? Are there infrastructure deals? Are there backdoor political support that binds these leaders to Caracas more than to the CARICOM consensus? This is a very interesting thing that you must ask yourself about. I believe the real threat here is fragmenting CARICOM's voice. CARICOM thrives or pretends to thrive on a consensus, but when you have leaders who routinely break ranks to defend the pariah regime, it fractures the unity, and it already hardly has unity. For example, when CARICOM attempted to take a neutral stance on Venezuela's political crisis recently, you had the St. Vincent Prime Minister actively, openly making statements, not on CARICOM behalf. So that puts a fracture in the unity of CARICOM and tending to tip the scales towards Maduro's favor. So this isn't just diplomacy, it's what I would call a strategic infiltration of CARICOM, you know? And if you look further, you will notice that Maduro's tentacles, his intelligence, his surveillance stretch far and wide throughout the Caribbean. People don't know this. So what's more unsettling is that the intelligence services have embedded assets in multiple Caribbean nations. And there are leaders in the region suspected of helping to facilitate these operations. There was a leak communique which was suppressed by CARICOM, but briefly surfaced in 2021, suggesting that there were Venezuelan operatives using several of these CARICOM islands as transit points. What were they using them for? For surveillance equipment, data interception tools, amid tracking opposition figures across the region as well. In other words, turn parts of the Caribbean into an extension of Maduro's shadow state. Off the book intelligence corridor cloaked under diplomatic immunity. That's dangerous for CARICOM. The next question you may want to ask yourself, is there a shadow agenda? Is there a new CARICOM order? They have been quietly aligning with the leftist authoritarian regimes like Venezuela and Cuba. And their goal basically is to subtly pivot CARICOM away from Western dependency, which is not a bad thing. But the bad thing here is towards a hemispheric bloc rooted in ideology, solidarity, state control of media, and suppression of dissent. And if successful, this would, of course, undermine democratic institutions in the Caribbean under the guise of what I would say sovereignty and regional integration. It's slow, patient work, almost invisible, but it's happening. Because if you look at some Caribbean islands, you see that now, where media is being harassed and tried to be controlled by the state, where you have suppression of dissent. People try to protest, and you can't get that done. And you see an ideology emerging, like what is emerging out of Cuba and Venezuela in many of these Caribbean islands. So it's happening quietly. You can't push socialist ideals or communistic ideals on people all at once or in one swell soup. You have to do it with a patience and a calm. In summary, what I'm saying is that this is dangerous. And these Caribbean leaders, their friendship with Maduro isn't just a diplomatic quirk you're seeing here. It's basically undermining CARICOM unity. It's providing cover for Venezuelan influence operations. It's opening the door to authoritarian grip, and it's turning regional politics into a proxy battlefield for hemispheric power plays. A lot of us are not ready for this kind of thing. And all the while, of course, these leaders are framing it as solidarity with the oppressed, but the real oppressed are the people being drawn into a, I would say, geopolitical game they never agreed to play. And the leaders, they are not just friendly with Maduro, they may very well be his most valuable assets in the Caribbean. So we have to be really, really mindful and pay attention to what is happening around us. Anyway, thanks guys. Remember to like, share, and subscribe.